Okay, we're on our way to watch Captain Marvel. Predictions. You first.
I think I'm gonna be enjoying it.
Okay.
I really do think I'm gonna enjoy it.
Yeah.
Utter shit.
Oh, okay.
No, we started.
Okay.
Okay, I have no idea what to expect, but I'm hoping it's gonna be good.
Yeah, I also think it's gonna be really good. I don't know what the plot's about or anything because I haven't really been watching the trailers, so I don't really know what's going on. All I know is Nick Fury's gonna be in it and he's younger, so I hope the CGI and they're gonna CGI his face, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I hope that looks good because Star Wars didn't do very well with that.
And neither did Justice League.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and my predictions are that it's going to be politicized because Brie Larson has made it very clear she's not afraid to mention politics in conjunction with the movie. And I don't think it's going to be as politicized as Black Panther because, I mean, that's just a monumental feat on its own. But I am hoping for a good movie at the end of the day. I don't want it to be a bad movie. I want it to be the next Citizen Kane, but I just don't think it will be. So, I have now seen Captain Marvel, and in my opinion, it was extremely underwhelming. I think it was the definition of underwhelming. And I will definitely come out with a critique of it at some point, because I think it's a terrible movie and it deserves a critique. But right now, I just want to do a more informal kind of take on the movie. I've only seen it once at this point, and when I do my critique, I will watch it at least once more, probably more than that. But right now, I just want to have a discussion about this because I think that it's down there with Thor: The Dark World and Ant-Man and the Wasp and Black Panther. I don't know. I think The Incredible Hulk is better than it, but it's down there with the worst MCU movies. It's really bad. It's really, really bad. And yeah, this will be a much more informal video. It's not scripted. I have an outline of the plot over here, just so I can have a go, and then I'll talk about other things that other concepts and stuff like world building. Was Captain Marvel a Mary Sue? But for now, this movie was not good. It's like, did I have expectations going into it? To a certain extent, yes. I wasn't free of expectations. My main expectation was that, like, Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, whatever. I know her as Ms. Marvel. I've always known her as Ms. Marvel. I knew her as a kind of hard-ass, endearing, strong female character. Not bossy, not bitchy, but a leader-like character. And you know, leaders are not necessarily strict, but strong-willed. And when I watched the trailers for Captain Marvel, Brie Larson just doesn't seem like that. Like, I remember this one line from the trailer. She says, I'm not gonna fight your war. I'm gonna end it. Yeah. I didn't get a strong and independent vibe from her, and that's not me trying to make a play on SJWs or anything. You know, the strong, independent female archetype. She's not. I wouldn't call it an SJW movie either. I expected going into it. I expected there to be politics, not as politicized as Black Panther, but I expected there to be politics, and honestly, it wasn't that bad. Really. The politics weren't that bad. I think the most constant, also my memory isn't that good of the movie. I need to watch it more and, you know, try to critique it. But from what I remember, the only really political element of the movie is the constant condemnation of men. There are men in the movie, they are sexist, and the movie makes it out to be that basically all men are sexist. That's what the movie would have you believe. And even Brie Larson in an interview, she said, yeah, that's pretty much what it's like being a woman 24/7. Like, okay, no. Brie Larson, you live in a mansion, I bet, somewhere in Beverly Hills. You are the definition of disconnected. You are so out of touch with what the viewers of your movie and the fans of the comics are actually interested in. You're so out of touch that you can't comment on that. So yeah, the movie just came off as a Gillette ad at sometimes, like these guys just being so unrealistically sexist. But anyway, okay, let's go point by point, and then I'll talk about the greater concepts after that. Excuse me if I'm rambling, but this isn't scripted. This is why I script videos, because my train of thought has several tracks, and I just jump from one to the other all the time. But anyway, so the movie starts off, and as I remember, the movie starts off, and it's Veers, our main character, Captain Marvel, her name is Veers, having a dream. And this dream sort of acts as exposition for later on. She doesn't know why she's having these dreams, and so she wakes up, and she's on a planet called Hala. Now, I'm gonna be honest. This is the first movie where there's a location that is clearly CGI. Like, Hala was definitely CGI. But this is the first movie in which there's a clearly CGI location, and I was looking as hard as I possibly could to find errors and flaws in the CGI. Like, I was trying to scrutinize it. I was trying so hard. Because in Black Panther, I turned my brain off. I turned my brain off for this movie as well, but in the cinema for Black Panther, I watched it, and I just, like, I saw Wakanda, and I didn't bother. Like, I could tell it was fake, of course, but the CGI wasn't very egregious. In Captain Marvel, I really tried to scrutinize the CGI on Hala. I thought it was really good. I thought the CGI was fantastic. I could not find a flaw. But it always happens that in the cinema, in the IMAX theater or in the normal theater, I can't really tell the flaws with the CGI. But when I get home and I eventually find a copy of the movie, then I watch it on my computer. Then it's like a day and night difference to me. I don't know why. Maybe the IMAX theater, maybe how big the screen is has something to do with it. I don't know. It looked really good to me. So I'd say for most of the movie, the CGI was fantastic, except for the end. I'll get to that later. So she wakes up on Hala. I thought the CGI was fantastic on Hala, and she goes like to I think she's in like some kind of dorm type building, because her and her Kree teammates, they're on like a task force, like a Black Ops task force type thing. And she goes to the door next door. She meets Yon-Rogg, played by Jude Law, and she's very cute. She's like, I can't sleep, but if I tried to sleep, then I'd be sleeping. And she's like, this very cute moment. Yeah, that's all I could think about it. For the rest of the movie, she's not like that. She's not cute. Anywhere else in the movie, she's sarcastic. She's quippy. I wouldn't call her witty, because, you know, wit takes some level of skill. No, she's just quippy, and I think all her quips missed. She's a very inconsistent character. She's all over the place. Tonally, the movie's all over the place as well. The pacing is terrible as well. But, yeah, this one moment where she's all cute and stuff, it just doesn't fit. If you look at the rest of the movie with her. Then she goes to the Supreme Intelligence after a training scene with Yon-Rogg. In this training scene, they fight, and the choreography is cool. I love action movies. I love scrutinizing fight scenes. I'll watch an action movie, and then when the movie's done, I'll go back to my favorite fight scenes, and I'll just watch the fight scenes over and over until I know the moves, until I know exactly what they do. Because oftentimes in action movies, the fighting is so choppy and the editing is so cutty and there's shaky cam, you can't actually tell what's happening. So that's why I would need to watch it over and over. There's this one move that Yon-Rogg does. This one move that he does to counter Veers' punch that comes straight from Expendables 3. The choreography was cool, but the scene didn't feel like it accomplished much. Yeah, she could have blasted him any time, then she does, and she went like, oops, at the end. Yeah, she meets the Supreme Intelligence. Either her or Yon-Rogg says that her gift of like shooting light beams out of her fist, they were given to her, and they can be taken away whenever. That is basically the first bit of foreshadowing that we get, that these people aren't actually good. These aren't the good guys. It's a plot twist later on. Oh, I'm sorry, I will get into spoiler territory if you haven't seen this movie. Go watch it, but I will be tackling spoilers. So, yeah, the Supreme Intelligence appears to you as your most admired person. But when it appears to Veers, it's this old woman who she's never met before. I assumed it was her mother, but it wasn't. So then they get sent on a rescue mission to some alien world, and I didn't notice this, but other YouTubers have pointed out that when they teleport through space, they use the same type of hexagon-shaped jump point portal that is used in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Good world building there, making that jump point thing consistent across the two movies. There was a lot of consistency from this movie to Guardians. Like the blue face shield. The blue face shield that covers their mouths is the same blue shield that covers the Guardians in space. There are probably a lot more references that I missed, but moving on. On this rescue mission, they encounter Skrulls, Veers is captured, and then there's the scene where her mind is getting literally mined for information, and it acts as exposition. I think it's the biggest exposition dump in the movie. There's one earlier that the Supreme Intelligence gives, but I think this one is the biggest. You really can't tell what's happening right now, but I guess all of that was necessary. A minute in, I felt like, okay, I'm tired of watching this now. Can we stop? But yeah, but I think it was kind of necessary. I'm not sure if all of it was. Again, I'll cover that later when I see the movie again. So she breaks out of her containment, and there's this really stupid moment where a Skrull screams at her, like is really angry at her. Roars at her, and she's like, back, like an angry cat. It's like, oh my goodness, was that bad? Okay, so she escapes the ship, she crash lands into a blockbuster on Earth in 1995, and here we come to Earth. The first 20 minutes of the movie, really fast-paced, then we get to Earth, and everything slows down. Then we come to the chasing on the train. So the pacing is fast, then a little bit slower, then extremely slow towards the middle of the movie, but I'll get to that. She makes a long-distance call to Jan Rog, telling her that she's on Earth. He says, no, just stay there, and she's like, nah, screw that. S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up the next morning, goes to see her. She's like, you really have no idea what you're doing, do you? She delivers sarcastic lines, and she delivers quips the same way she would deliver like a normal sentence. She's so bland. Like the movie, Brie Larson is really bland. She might be the worst actor in the MCU. She really might be. It's sad. She leaves because Skrulls attack. Then there's the chase scene. She goes on the train. She fights the Skrull there. Shapeshifts as an old lady, then just a random dude. Fury's following all the time with Skrull Coulson next to him. He sees, like, that Skrull dies. And of course, when Skrulls die, in the comics at least, it looks like it's pretty consistent in the movies. When Skrulls die, they revert back to their Skrull form from whatever they were transformed into. He finds out the Skrulls are real. Then Brie Larson finds a map that leads her towards the Air Force Base. I think that Air Force Base is the same Air Force Base that Rhodey visits with the Mark II armor in Iron Man 2. I think it's the same Air Force Base. I think it's called Edwards Air Force Base. Not sure. But while she's looking at the map, this guy drives up to her, and he's like a character from a Gillette ad. It's so bad. I can't imagine that person existing in real life. He was revving his engine at her and stuff. Those people exist in real life. Yeah, totally. It's just he acted so unrealistically. He was such a stereotype. Yeah. She steals his bike. She steals some clothes. She goes to a bar. She has this, she has visions of her memories in that same bar. Fury meets her there. They have this back and forth in which they prove to each other that they're not Skrulls. And this is the beginning of their bonding, but their chemistry really gets well developed in the car ride on the way to the Air Force Base. Fury reveals during the car ride that he is Fury, just Fury. And this is important later because a Skrull calls him Nicholas. I guess that's the whole, the whole purpose of him telling Veers, my children will call me Fury, everyone calls me Fury, my mama called me Fury, all that. Just so that we could know that when the Skrull calls him Nicholas, it's out of place, and that they are a Skrull. It feels like there are things in this movie that are set up, and then their payoffs are just so dismal. Like, their payoffs are just not worth it at all. There are a few times like that. So they get to the base, and it's revealed very early on that Veers is wearing a universal translator, which is how she speaks to people. And, by the way, I think the people behind Marvel, the MCU, they've revealed that all of the talking in space, with aliens or with Kree or with humans in space, that all happens via universal translator. None of it's in English. I believe that's canon. So they aren't actually speaking English, we just hear English. Look, I'm sorry, I would edit that out if this was scripted, but this is unscripted, so yeah, just go with it. The thing about the universal translator is that Fury tells Veers, ditch the flannel, which is like the shirt she's wearing around her waist. Now, I have no problem, just, turning my brain off and saying and believing that because the universal translator works like a universal translator, she understands what flannel is. But the thing is that, at least on Earth, this is the rule. In real life, we can translate words across languages, but there are actually some languages that just have such a limited vocabulary that words like fan or map just don't exist in those languages. So there is no precedent, there is no reference in other languages for words in some languages. And I feel like this happens not just once in the movie, but there are certain words and there are certain terms on Earth in English that I just don't think there would be reference for in space. But Veers understands it anyway because of the universal translator. I feel like it's a bit lazy because I felt like there were moments when there were certain things that people said to her that she just shouldn't have understood. But yeah, that deserves further critiquing once I can see the movie again. So she loses the flannel, they meet some people, they ask to see the old lady who's, I think her name is Dawson. They're like, hey, we want to meet this lady, and then they get sent to a waiting room. Fury MacGyver's away out of the waiting room, and at some point here, they meet Goose, the cat. Journalists were all over this guy, I'll cover him more later. But yeah, Goose is actually pretty important. I don't think for a good reason, but he is. So anyway, they end up at the archives, and they split up. Fury actually called his boss over, his boss who calls him Nicholas, revealing that this is actually a Skrull, because Fury was trying to turn in Veers. He was actually, basically working against her. Fury's boss turns out to be a Skrull, Fury fights the Skrull, Veers helps him escape, and they leave together in an early Quinjet. Funny thing, I actually looked at this jet, and the way that it flew and the way that it was designed, I looked at it and I'm like, that looks exactly like... Not exactly. That looks a lot like the Quinjet in Avengers Age of Ultron. So I leaned over to my friend and I'm like, yo, I bet you that's an early Quinjet. And I think some I think it was. I think it was revealed to be. I mean, I've heard some YouTubers talk about it. Proud prediction moment for me. So they go to Louisiana to meet Veers' old human friend. What's her name? Monica's her daughter. Her name is Maria. Maria Rambo. They catch up in what is definitely the most boring part of the movie. At some point here, I mean, there's this like, it felt like a half hour. It felt like a half hour of just nothing happened. I leaned over to my friend. I'm like, I am so bored right now. I've never felt so bored in a cinema before. I've never felt so bored in an MCU film either. I just wanted it to end. The Skrulls show up, and there's a big plot twist. The Skrulls are actually victims of the Kree. Yon-Rogg was lying to Veers all this time, and now she chooses to identify as Carol. That's the plot twist. Then Monica Rambeau helps pick Carol's new color scheme. How she knew how to work that device, I don't know, but it looked really easy. It looked like you just kind of rubbed your fingers over it, and then stuff happened. It really doesn't look all that sophisticated. They take the Quinjet into outer space to Mar-Vell's lab. Oh yeah, so Dawson wasn't actually a human. She was a Kree, and her name was Mar-Vell. Mar-Vell being a very important character in the comics. Mar-Vell was a man. He was an Avenger. His death was apparently a pretty big story in the comics. I'm not too emotionally connected to that character and to that story, the death of Captain Marvel. So I can't really say that I care about how they handled it poorly. What I will say is that the character of Mar-Vell in Captain Marvel, the gender swap was totally unnecessary, and let's just cover that now. Get it over with. Gender swapping, race swapping, sexuality swapping, characters from source material to other adaptations. It's disingenuous, it's disrespectful, and not only to the character, but it's disrespectful to the race or the sexuality or the gender that you're swapping them to. It's like the soft bigotry of low expectations. It's like you telling that race, that sexuality, that gender, it's like you telling them, you are not good enough to have your own characters. We are going to artificially make a pre-established character into your race, your sexuality, your gender, so that you can have a token character. And then so many people just eat it up, and I don't like it. I don't want to stand for it. I think they should stop it, but it happened, and she was just such a wasted character. She only ever appeared in flashbacks and to die, and she appeared as the Supreme Intelligence, which is just also kind of tonally inconsistent, because we're supposed to feel some kind of admiration for Mar-Vell, even though that is how the Supreme Intelligence appears to Veers, and so she's kind of like a villain character. Yeah, the movie's tone is all over the place. It turns out that Mar-Vell hid Skrulls in her lab while trying to develop a lightspeed engine that would take them somewhere where they could live safely and happily far away from the Kree. So she had hid Skrulls on her ship, and it was hidden up there in orbit where the Skrulls couldn't find it. That's why they were trying to data mine Carol's brain earlier in the movie. They were looking for the lightspeed engine where these Skrulls were hiding. The Kree team from earlier shows up, and they take everyone captive. Carol sees the Supreme Intelligence, who appears as Mar-Vell. It's weird. And for the whole movie, they've been controlling Carol through this, like, Sakaar-like inhibitor, like from Thor Ragnarok, and that's been inhibiting her powers. They told her that the powers that they gave to her could be taken away, when really they couldn't, and she now knew that. The Supreme Intelligence kind of beats her around in, like, this virtual reality experience, and then she tries harder, and she beats the Supreme Intelligence, and then she tries even harder, and then she learns to fly, and then she tries even harder, and she punches a spaceship to death. And this growth, this character development, just feels so rushed and out of place and artificial. She just tries harder, and then she does stuff. Just missed. Just did not land. Carol fights off her old teammates, and the Skrulls manage to beat their Kree captors with help from Goose. So earlier in the movie, one of the Skrulls told told Fury that Goose is not a cat, it is a flurkin. I believe that's the word, a flurkin. And he's like, no, dude, it's a cat. And it turns out that it is actually a flurkin. And I'm pretty sure, I don't think they revealed it in the movie, but I'm pretty sure that Mar-Vell brought the flurkin to Earth. Yeah, I'm just pretty sure that's how it got there, because it's definitely not a cat. And so the flurkin, Goose, spreads these tentacles out of its mouth and beats around the Skrulls and then eats them, swallows all these Skrulls, and apparently a flurkin is this alien species that has these pockets of reality inside itself. That's what I actually thought, because when I saw it swallow the Tesseract, I'm like, nah, its stomach is a portal to another dimension. It has to be. And it turns out that is kind of accurate. So I think that's just another way that Captain Marvel is predictable. Ronan shows up because Yon-Rogg called him, and he throws all these missiles at Earth. Carol just throws them back. She throws one back, and it destroys all the others, and there were like over a dozen of them. So yeah, she just tries really hard and does whatever she wants. That's her power. She floats over to Ronan's ship and she bumps her fist, and there's this big light thing, and then Ronan has this really cringy moment where his eyes are wide and he looks back at the guy behind him, and then he looks back at Captain Marvel, and then they leave, and it's just so stupid. But anyway, she lands back on Earth, and Jan Rog is clearly her physical superior in fighting, in like martial arts and combat. He is clearly her superior. So on Earth, they face off because she like grounded his ship. They face off. He has his weapons out. He puts them away, and he's like, "Now's your chance to prove yourself to me. Beat me hand to hand." And she just blasts him. It's like an Indiana Jones moment when he shot the guy with the sword. He goes flying back at some rocks. She goes over to him and she says, "I have nothing to prove to you." Now, despite what some people who are like-minded to me would think, I think this was very well handled. He said, "You have something to prove to me." She said, "I have nothing to prove to you." And that was that. It didn't feel like an SJW moment at all. It felt well written and well delivered. I was happy with it, really, especially considering some other parts of the movie were just a total Gillette ad. I felt that was well handled. I was pleased with that scene. But overall, the climax of the movie, the third act, I guess, it's just severely lacking. It was so lackluster. The parts, oh yeah, the CGI was terrible. But the parts when she is CGI, flying through space, destroying the ships, it happens so quickly. I feel like in so many other Marvel movies, they have a good ratio of slow-paced scenes to fast-paced action scenes. There's such a good ratio, but in this movie, the ratio was all off, or at least it felt like that. Now comes the denouement. Fury is in the ship, and he's like cuddling with Goose, and he's saying, "Oh, you're such a good boy, Goose." And then Goose scratches his eye out, and that's how Nick Fury loses his eye. And it's maybe the worst part of the entire movie, in my opinion. Some people say that they don't like how Fury lost his eye because of how he built it up in Winter Soldier. I completely forgot about that. Talking about Captain Marvel as a movie by itself, him losing his eye to Goose is ridiculous and stupid without considering the context of other movies. It doesn't belong in the movie, especially considering he said in Winter Soldier, "Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye." They had shape-shifting aliens in this movie. He could have trusted one of them, only to lose his eye to them, but no, it was a cat, or at least an alien that looked like a cat. Because the Skrulls aren't really the bad guys. The Skrulls are just a metaphor for refugees, really. And yeah, I could say that's another politicized part of the movie, that the Skrulls are just a metaphor for refugees, but that was well handled at least. It was subtle. The sexist men in the movie were not subtle at all. They were really in your face and stereotypical and not well handled. Carol then leaves Earth with the Skrulls to help them find a home somewhere far away from the Kree, with the use of the Lightspeed engine. Fury is then writing up the Protector Initiative, and Coulson comes and gives him a whole bunch of new eyes. Coulson in this movie, he's not there. The CGI on Coulson's face is far more distracting than the CGI on Nick Fury's face. I couldn't really tell when Fury's face was CG. I could tell when Coulson's face was CG. Considering how impactful Coulson's death was to the Avengers and to the MCU, because let's just disregard Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., let's disregard that, they really underutilized Coulson in Captain Marvel. And it turns out that the Avengers name comes from Carol's nickname in the Air Force. No, okay, yeah, that's the worst part of the movie. Second worst is Nick Fury losing his eye to the cat. The worst part of this movie is that it's just not organic. Carol's nickname was Avenger, and so that's why Nick Fury calls the Avengers the Avengers. It's just so shoehorned in. But now that we're done with the plot... Oh wait, post-credit scenes. Okay, post-credit scene. The first one is her showing up to the Avengers after the Snapshare, and she says, "Where's Fury?" Because he's been dusted. She completely breached all of their security systems. If she can become pure light and move through solid matter, like Photon can in the comics, then I guess that's explained, but it's just so silly. But anyway, that's basically the whole point of the movie. The movie's terrible by itself. It doesn't set up anything other than Captain Marvel being in Endgame. And if she shows up there and beats Thanos to a pulp all by herself, that'll ruin the MCU for me. I think that'll ruin the whole MCU, because what I want is for Hulk to have a rematch with Thanos. I want Hulk and Thanos to have a rematch, and I want that to be cool. If Captain Marvel shows up there and she's the only reason they win, that will probably ruin the MCU for me. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy with the MCU ending after Endgame. I don't need anything more. That'll be the resolution to the original Avengers story. It'll act like a send-off to them. I'll be happy with that. If Captain Marvel ruins it, yeah. That won't change how bad Captain Marvel is, though. Captain Marvel is a terrible movie all by itself. Then the next post-credit scene is, after all the credits are finished, it's just the Flurkin spitting up on Fury's desk, and then it vomits up the Tesseract. And yeah, all that serves, did you wonder how they got the Tesseract out of Goose's stomach? Did you wonder that? Well, now you know, because they had a post-credit scene, a very disappointing post-credit scene to tell that to us, yeah. Now let's talk about other things, because that's the plot out of the way. The acting was Samuel L. Jackson probably was the most organic and likable part of the movie. He was really good. His jokes and lines were cool. Brie Larson's acting was abysmal. Just nothing good to mention there. She was bland and uninteresting, like the movie as a whole. The writing? Yeah, I can't actually comment on the writing right now. I can't remember a lot of aspects from the script, but I'll tell you what, no amount of beautiful writing would have saved Captain Marvel from Brie Larson's awful acting and awful delivery. Her delivery was terrible. If Brie Larson is a fantastic actor outside of Captain Marvel, there's no way of discerning that in this movie. The Skrulls, they are just an allegory for refugees or immigrants, whatever term you want. I think it's well handled. It's subtle enough that you can actually miss it on your first watch through. But I think I picked up on it late into the movie. I did. I think they even call themselves refugees. Anyway, it's not as on the nose as all the sexist men. Goose, the cat, his entire purpose in the movie is to hold the Tesseract for a while and get rid of get rid of Nick Fury's eye. I'm sorry, I struggled to separate Nick Fury from Sam Jackson. Goose's entire purpose is just to scratch out Nick Fury's eye. It's so poorly done. Like, so much of this movie is poorly done. I can't actually name anything to you that is really stand out amazing about this film. The CGI is great. It works for most of the movie. But that shouldn't be something that stands out. That should be the standard. Great CG that makes you believe that you are actually in a fictional place should be the standard. We shouldn't reward CG that is believable. Yeah, especially considering the CG towards the end of the movie is bad. When Carol's falling out of orbit to the Earth, that was pretty bad. Some of the stuff that when she's flying through space, that looked pretty bad. As for world building, there are connections, of course, to Guardians. A lot of references like that. The only world building we really get is some stuff in space, and then the fact that Captain Marvel was the first Avenger to ever appear to Nick Fury, and then she comes back in the post-credits scene to meet the current Avengers who were left after the Snapshot. That's all world building that this movie does. Like in Black Panther, there's a lot of world building, and it's terrible. It just misses the mark, for reasons I explained in my critique. But in Captain Marvel, there's so little world building that there's nothing to comment on, even though they tried. All that you can really take away from the world building in Captain Marvel is that there are some references to Guardians, and she met the Avengers at the end. All this movie was the first movie that felt to me like filler. It just felt to me like it was just unnecessary. They did not need to make it. Ant-Man and the Wasp felt like it accomplished more and did not feel like filler. Captain Marvel totally felt like filler. Now then, of course, the big question. I think everyone's going to be talking about this. Is Carol Danvers a Mary Sue? From what I saw, I don't think so. Right now, I don't think she's a Mary Sue. I think she's bland and uninteresting and extremely powerful. Is she a Mary Sue? Okay, well, let's talk about it now because, talking about Rey from Star Wars, I think she is the best example of a Mary Sue in our time in cinema. But Carol Danvers, she has no flaws. Can you discern a flaw of hers in the movie? I don't think you can. Yeah, how powerful is she? She's so powerful that when she just tries a little bit harder, she unlocks all these new powers. Like, I think if she just tried a little bit harder than that, she could just snap back all of the people who got dusted back into reality. She could just do that if she tried a little bit harder. It seems like her powers are limitless. I can't name you one flaw of hers in the movie. I don't think you can name me a flaw of hers either. She's not perfect. She's just so boring that she does nothing wrong. And I wouldn't say she does everything right. She accomplishes everything. She not necessarily does everything right. Is she a Mary Sue? I will definitely tackle this again in critique of it. But otherwise, this was just my off-the-cuff take on the movie. I felt like giving it. Depending on your reception, you the viewer, your reception of this video, I might do more in the future. I don't know. But for now, I'll just leave you with mine and my friends' hot takes on it after we left the cinema. Thanks for watching and bye. Okay, so we watched Captain Marvel. It was the definition of meh in my opinion. You?
It wasn't as good as I thought it was gonna be. Yeah, it was pretty boring compared to other like Marvel movies. I think the effects were really good, except for the last when she's flying around. And,
The climax.
Yeah, the climax fight. She didn't look too good in that. The CGI on Samuel L. Jackson's face was pretty good.
That was really him.
And I really enjoyed like the chemistry between Samuel L. Jackson and Brie Larson. I think
pretty good.
Yeah, I think they did well together. Screen.
Okay, front seat.
Definitely was better than my prediction before I watched the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, objectively.
Objectively.
Utter shit.
I enjoyed the fight scenes. I don't know why, but I thought
All 5 seconds of them.
yeah. And it wasn't as political as I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, me
Well, as I
neither.
was led to think it would be.
Yeah, sorry. I kind of gave you expectations.
But yeah, it wasn't the best movie, but I don't think it was that bad.
Driver?
Yeah. Also, fight scenes. There weren't really many of it. Oh, that's okay.
Your honest
Yeah,
take.
it wasn't really memorable in my opinion.
Yeah.
What wasn't the best Marvel movie?
Yeah, like I'd put it on the same level as Thor
I really
2.
like her as a character either.
Her acting.
Isn't she just really like super powerful?
Look
Yeah,
at her.
but
She
when you
was.
think she got the
She
name
punched
Marvel,
she punched a spaceship like out of commission. But like,
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
in my opinion, like Thor 2, Thor: The Dark World, when the stakes and the climax, when the whole world was at stake, Thor 2 is terrible, but it had better stakes than this movie. The movie was just so underwhelming. Yeah.
And there were some predictable moments in the movie,
Yeah.
especially the cat.
Yeah, let's talk about the cat because journalists are all over the cat. They love the cat. I thought the cat was a bit okay. Like they did the cat moment twice, and it was okay the first time.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny. I liked how they alluded to it being an alien species, and then it turned out to actually be an alien species. That was cool, but
No,
definitely not the best part of the movie.
And I think the post-credit scene was a bit obvious. I mean, did we all know that the Tesseract was in the cat before we saw the cutscene?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, remember the post-credit scene in Ant-Man and the Wasp where the ant is on the drums? It's just like so meh. Like usually the post-credit scenes are like,
Good, yeah.
yeah, good. But now in Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel, like,
It didn't do
they happen.
anything.
Yeah, the
It was
post-credit
just
scene
there
was just
because
so.
it had to be there.
Didn't even have to be there.
No.
Well, they need a post-credit scene. They're known for it.
Yeah, but they could have done something way better than
She could
that.
have signed this saying sorry, not today.
Like, what did they do in Homecoming
Captain America.
about the disappointment?
Homecoming.
That was actually good.
That was fantastic. That's one of my
They've already
favorites.
done it, okay.
It's one of my favorite
Yeah.
post-credit scenes. Yeah, with Captain America and Homecoming. But the one, okay, so yeah, what else? What else? Acting,
That's all my critiques.
okay. Brie Larson's acting was a bit. She was serious at sometimes and jokey at others, and her quips they all missed.
Oh, you know what I didn't like? I don't know if this is a Marvel thing, but a lot of blockbusters they have it. The super wise kid.
Yeah.
Like, no, mom, go. I'm okay. I can. You know, it just annoys
if you
me.
talk to your mom like that in real life, she's gonna
Yeah.
smack you.
Yeah, no kids are that
I
wise.
think that's
Yeah.
just the generation.
No, yeah.
These kids these days, you know.
Kids are
Don't
smartasses. Yeah.
No.
No.
The wise kid.
And there wasn't enough Coulson.
They look. I swear it was easier to de-age Samuel L. Jackson than it was to de-age Coulson.
Yeah, because I thought he looked really funny at the beginning of the movie, Coulson. Like,
Although the CG
he
was
looked
fantastic.
strange.
The CG was
Yeah, it
great
was really
until
good.
the end.
Yeah, like compared to Star Wars, this is way better.
Oh yeah.
But
Let's not bring up Star Wars.
That came out
please.
2 years ago, so you can actually see like how much they've like improved over 2 years. Yeah, because I stopped watching Agents of Shield, and a lot of people didn't watch it. Like, and a lot of people watch the movies, don't watch the
Like me.
the TV show.
I don't watch Agents
So
of
like, and knowing that Coulson was gonna be in this, and you know, it could have been more because like he's in the Avengers, and he dies, and it's like a moment that Nick Fury uses to bring the Avengers together to like fight. You know, when he puts the cards down.
Yeah, he literally uses
Yeah.
Coulson as a device, as a
Yeah.
MacGuffin.
So,
But
like-
but in this movie, Coulson he just wasn't there.
Yeah, he's not in it.
So the moment in the stairwell when he's like he lets Nick Fury go, that was okay, but like it wasn't as impactful as they wanted it to be.
Yeah.
So Coulson they just wasted.
Yeah,
It's like
so-
Coulson's back. He's back, guys, and he does nothing.
Yeah. I think the characters wasn't a strong point of the film. The characters.
What was a strong point of that movie? What was a strong point of that movie?
I think the effects were amazing. Up until the climactic fight.
I think we can agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The effects on Hala, the planet, it looked better than Wakanda. Hala, yeah, dude. It looked better than Wakanda. It looked way better. And yeah, I thought it was going to be politicized, but not as politicized as Black Panther. That came true, but it really wasn't that politicized.
It wasn't.
Like, I mean, there were some guys who were acting like assholes that were like, yes, it seemed like a Gillette ad, like a really long version of it, but it wasn't as politicized as I thought it would be. And I think the moment at the end of the movie where she says, I've got nothing to prove to you, that was very well handled, I think. I can cut it off there.
Yeah. I've said everything I have to say.
Thanks, guys, thanks.
That was better than my first day.
Same.